statements. The first I can statement is I can describe the characters in the text of Find School and Happy Trails. We've been working on this using a graphic organizer, and so now the students have done two characters from a Find School, and they've done the main character from Happy Trails. And so today we're going to take what we've learned about the characters in those stories, and we're going to put it into an exit ticket so that we can see if they understand it or not. And then our second I can statement is I can ask and answer questions from the text of Find School and Happy Trails to better understand. And so they have been working on asking their partners questions that they may have about the text to deepen their understanding of the text. And then today we're going to move on asking and finding answers inside the text using text evidence. And so our question today will be, why does Mr. King think the school is so fine? And they will use text evidence to prove why Mr. King thinks that the school that they go to is such a fine school.
Hi, I'm Ms. Rosenhammer, and today in third grade math we are working on I can add two 3-digit numbers with regrouping. And so the students are actually adding numbers and working on regrouping with a place value chart. They're using expanded form and then the standard algorithm, and we're looking in to see which strategy they like the best and which one they can work with the best.
So first learning target for this week is RL 4.1, using details to explain what the text says explicitly and also what it implies. In other words, making inferences. Students are doing this with text by finding evidence that's measurable for me because we're using highlighters, so I can come around and see what they are highlighting and how they are finding what the text is saying, what they're using for evidence. Second learning target for the week is RL 4.2, determining the theme of a text and summarizing the text. We have been using graphic organizers for both of these for students to pull out the details here, to be able to know how those details relate to a theme and how they can summarize it using the characters and the setting. So I'm measuring it by seeing their graphic organizers as a completed product and what they have. W4.3, organizing a sequence of events in a narrative writing. This goes along with summarizing a text. So right now we are focusing on being sure that we are getting those events in order, in sequence, which we have also been using graphic organizers for. Agenda for today, we are watching a video on theme so students can get a better understanding of what that is and how to find it. Using the SQ3R method for our new story that we are reading this week, Strong for Schema, and with that we are also going to be determining what the theme is, and we are also going to be writing a sequence of events from that story to go along with W4.3.
Alright, well welcome. Today I'm going to be explaining about my learning targets and in correlation with our agenda. Fourth grade math, Ms. Monk here. And our learning targets, we're basing this week, we've been learning about 4 ABT 1 and 2. And so we've been talking about place value in correlation to explaining the actual values of our digits. And we've been also explaining the difference between the standard word and expanded form. Our third learning target, we have been discussing how to compare two multi-digit numbers. So of course, in previous grades, they've learned different learning strategies. But this year, we're trying to get away from like the slogans and the chants of, for example, we're comparing digits, the alligator mouth. So this year, we are trying to learn more strategies that are easier for them to remember, and they are actually measurable. So, for example, with our agenda for today we will, first thing that we do, I always give them a do now, which is on our front board. The do now is something in correlation to what they did the previous night for homework. So that way it's things that they should be able to do independently while we're letting other students come in. When we get ready to start our entry tasks are normally things that when we get ready to learn a new lesson. So for today, we will be learning about comparison to numbers. And the entry task will entail them to discuss with a partner how they actually compare their numbers. So they'll be learning how to line two numbers and talk about which place is the place that they actually use to compare that number. Back in correlation with for MBT 1 and for MBT 2 with comparing the digits.
Hi, all right, I'm the second grade ELA teacher at Utica. Our learning targets for today, the students can distinguish short A and short I when they read one syllable words. So as an entry task, the students would turn and talk to one another and come up with 2 short A words, 2 short I words, and then we discussed as a class. They also alphabetized a set of words, and as their entry task, they turned and talked to a neighbor to answer 2 questions on the board: which word would come first in a set of words, which word would come last, and they had to explain why. They also are retelling the story of Henry and Mudge using important details from the story, and they are also telling the beginning, middle, and end of the story and making sure to use time-ordered words. They're working on identifying the subject and predicate of a sentence to determine if it is a complete sentence. They are also describing how the author's word choice makes the story more interesting, and they're working on taking very basic sentences and adding details to make them more interesting and make sure they tell a true story as their narrative writing.
Good morning. So over here we have my learning targets. If we take a look, one of my learning targets is that I can show that I know what intent is. And in parentheses, I have the standard. And then if we take a look at our agenda, we will see that the standard is prominently on the agenda. And so how this standard is actionable is students can use manipulatives to show that they know what a 10 is. And right now we are working on our number of the day. So our number of the day is the number 3. So a student would show me how many ones there are in the number 3 by either drawing or using manipulatives or doing a number sentence or using a number line. As we also look down at our targets, one of our standards is I can decode regularly spelled one-syllable words, and I have the standard in parentheses. And then again, over on my agenda, I also have the standard in parentheses, so the students know that when we are working on our phonemic awareness with a short A, that we are meeting that standard, which is our learning target. And then so today we worked on that standard with this. So we have our short A sounds, can, tap, ham. So the students are able to identify the beginning, medial, and ending sounds.
Coach Knott, 6th grade ELA teacher. Right here we have our learning targets for this week. This week we actually had 3. So the first one, it says, I can describe how the characters change throughout a literary text. This week, the ravine, that's our main text for this week. All right, so it does have a lot of characters that develop throughout the story, so it's a great piece to use for this standard. Number 2, it says, I can determine the theme based on the details from the text. That's what I'm trying to get the students to do as soon as we get done with the ravine. Next we have, I can summarize a literary text using only information from the text. Summarize is the main thing in our learning target. And over here for the entry task, it has write a brief summary about what you read yesterday. This is basically the main thing that I'm trying to get the students to do. Every single time that we read, they have to do a summary with it. And it just keeps them in sync with the learning target. As well as the first learning target with the characters, we also have story maps that highlight the characters so the student can actually see how the character is changing. And we also have different activities. So activity 1, it says summarize key points. That's actually a chart that we use, and it basically summarizes the key points, so it goes with the third learning target. The second activity with the story map, events, plot, and characters, mainly the character development goes with the activity 2. Activity 2 links with learning target number 1, with how they change. And then activity 3, it has closing summary of what we actually read for the day. And that's mainly what we basically do at the very end, so they write another summary, which is in sync with learning target number 3. So we hit all 3 learning targets in that one day through our entry task all the way to our last activity for the day.
Today in 6th grade, our learning targets, I can fluently divide multi-digit numbers, and I can find the greatest common factor of 2 whole numbers that are less than or equal to 100 were measurable because today the students reviewed their homework and had to complete a foldable that accompanied the learning target of dividing multi-digit numbers. And the students also were in centers today working on the greatest common factor and least common multiple, which accompanies finding the greatest common factor of two whole numbers and finding the least common multiple of two whole numbers.
So I'm a 5th grade math teacher, and our standards for this week are MBT 1 and MBT 2. Our learning targets are: I can explain the relationship between digits in different decimal places. I can explain the connection between the number of zeros in a number and the multiples of 10. I can explain the connection between the decimal point and multiplying and dividing by 10. And I can use exponents to show powers of 10. So basically what this means for us is that we are using place value charts to understand how different place values are related to each other and how you can multiply or divide by powers of 10 in order to move your digits from one place value to the next up to the thousands place.
This week in 5th grade, our learning targets are for the students to determine the theme of our story, Elisa's Diary. The students have, this is a measurable task because they are able to explain the theme in a complete sentence, and they use the character qualities, motives, and their actions to determine their theme. They also know that the theme has to be applied to everyone, not just one person. Our other target is for them to describe the narrator, how the narrator's point of view helps to understand the events in the story. Our story this week was based on the story being told from third person point of view. And one of the students' assignments is they're gonna change it to their point of view, explaining the same situation that Alicia had in the story. Over here, our entry task, each day the children come in, their entry task is to read an article and discuss with their students the 2 to 3 facts that they get from their story that may intrigue their interest. And they also identify the unfamiliar vocabulary words they may not understand or don't know. And then we discuss them and I clarify their meanings of the words. Our guided practice, we use a graphic organizer to summarize the story based on the main character, what the problem was, how the characters solved their problem, and also what was the end result.
Today our learning targets are: I can decode regularly spelled one-syllable words, and I can ask and answer questions about key details. This has to go with our journey story and our short A, our consonants, NDPF this week, and our story, journey story, what is a PAL. When we get to the ask and answer questions, the children will spell and say their spelling, vocabulary, and they'll collaborate, we'll turn and talk and ask and answer questions about what is a PAL. Those things will be done today in journeys, and also we'll go through the story in our big books and we will find upper and lowercase letters, identifying the letters and saying their sounds, letters, saying sounds. The capital letter Z says Z, and they make all the alphabet sounds today. I can read and cite words correctly. We have a sight word notebook at our desk, and that goes along with our journeys. All the sight words and spelling words go together in this journeys lesson.